Dear God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the big book and the 12 steps, everything I think I know about the programme, the fellowship, all spiritual terms, and especially about you, God. So I may have an open mind and a new experience. Please help me see the truth. Amen. A very warm welcome to any newcomers or visitors with us today. If you'd like to say hello, please do so in the chat. In the spirit of Tradition 6, CA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, and as such does not endorse and is not affiliated with any of the specific technologies providers to facilitate this meeting. In keeping with Tradition 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on CA unity. Please be mindful of this on screen and also in the chat. Love and tolerance is our code. We've got some readings coming up. I'll read the preamble. Cocaine Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from their addiction. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using cocaine and all other mind-altering substances. There are no dues or fees for membership and we're fully supporting for our own contributions. We're not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. We do not wish to engage in any controversy and neither endorse nor oppose any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay free from cocaine and all other mind-altering substances and to help others achieve the same freedom. We use the 12 steps of recovery because it's already been proven that the 12-step recovery programme works. Purdy, can I get you to do service and read the unity statement for us, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, Katie. Hi, guys. Purdy, recovered alcoholic addict and recovering human being. Unity is a common bond that transcends all differences. We've discovered that no matter how different our circumstances or the paths that brought us here, we all suffer from the same disease, addiction. We admitted our lack of power and accepted that we could not recover alone. The strength and direction of our recovery is found in our unity. We are people who might have never mixed. Addiction and recovery are the threads that bind us. We relate to such feelings as grandiosity, insecurity, jealousy and false pride and are reminded we're all alike. By sharing our experience with other addicts and working the 12 steps of CA, we come to know humility, security, acceptance and self-worth. Through applying the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, we grow in love, tolerance and respect for each other. This spiritual growth allows us to rise above prejudice regardless of religion, ethnicity, economic status, age, gender or sexual orientation to carry the CA message. Though we are different, we are the same. Regardless of the author, we share the same story. Recovery is possible together.
Thanks, Purdy, for your service. If you are new into recovery and this is your first meeting, welcome. It's recommended in CA that you find a sponsor and you go through the 12 steps. Dear God, I'm now ready for you to help in removing the defects of character, which I now realise are an obstacle to my recovery. Help me continue being honest with myself and guide me towards spiritual and mental health. Amen. It is with much love and gratitude that the group welcomes Sheldon F. to come and share with us. Sheldon, over to you. Thank you.
Hey everybody, Sheldon Fetty, alcoholic and certainly cocaine addict. I certainly qualify for CA. There's no doubt about that. I was joking with Purdy just before the meeting that, boy, to have a 45-minute talk on 6 and 7 when I was new would have just been incredibly intimidating. 6 and 7 were kind of the flyover steps. You know, you go through the process, or I went through the process with my sponsor, and step 1 there's some pretty heavy-duty discussion, and there's the period of 3.5 years where I went in and out of AA and I couldn't get a footing, and looking back, that was certainly me working on my first step of trying to figure out whether or not I really had alcoholism or addiction or what was really wrong with me, and trying to find any way other than having to become an AA member to get recovery. And then I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I claimed what I hope will be my last sobriety date. And then this question of step 2 comes up. And, it's an impossible question for me. I don't believe in God. I won't believe in God. I'm proudly agnostic and verging on atheist. I can't, it's not going to work for me. And then this is a process. this process of really going through the steps, I suppose. I mean, when did I change from someone that vehemently didn't believe in God to someone that had even the beginning of faith? I can't even put my finger on when that was, but it was a long process. Step 3 is an event. Step 3 is this, read 60 to 63, read it again. Okay, let's sit and read it together. Are you prepared? And I don't know. Part of me thinks that was the first lie I told to my sponsor, was that I was willing to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. But it was still an event. It was still a thing. And then you write the fourth step. And boy, this was my first real strenuous effort. The first thing I actually did. And it was an arduous process. Some people take weeks and weeks to do it. It took me 3 days, but it was 3 days of writing all day and throwing my pen and crying, and and then you get to step 5 and you make this appointment. So by the time I arrived at my sponsor's house to begin my 5th step, I felt like I had been in the steps and in the battle for a while. A lot of effort had been put in, and I showed up in the morning to share my 5th step, and it was actually a 2-day event. But by the time I was done, we finished step 5. He says to me, "So, Sheldon, are you willing to have God remove all these defects of character?" Well, by this point, I'm pretty convinced that all the crap I've written down is what's been defeating me, and so it's not a difficult question. Yes, I am ready that God should take all of it away. Will you humbly ask him? You bet your ass I will. I'll humbly ask him right now. Let's say the prayer. Boom, boom, boom. I'm done. We start scribbling out my 8-step list, and I leave his house on step 9. I mean, finally we're making progress, right? I show up in the morning on 5, I leave on 9, and I'm ready to rock and roll. And 6 and 7 were the flyover steps. I mean, it almost seems like there's nothing there. It almost seems like, who cares? Almost like there were really 10 steps, but Bill wanted 12 because it's much more of a spiritual number. So he threw those in there just to kind of pad the thing out a little bit. And I leave my sponsor's house and I go about my life. Now, the truth is that I don't remember the details of that ride home. But I'm sure on that ride home there was some idiot driving too slow, right? Some guy that's just in my way, and I'm selfish because I want him to move, and I'm dishonest because I never drive that slow, and he's not paying attention, and I'm afraid because now I'm good, right? I'm sure that all of these defects of character are ruling my drive home from my sponsor's house, having just said the prayer. I heard a guy say one time that when he's driving his car, he has 2 constant thoughts in his mind, and I identified. And one thought is, I want to kill that guy, and the other thought is, I want to sleep with that girl. And that's the only thing that runs through his head the entire time that he's driving anywhere. And I thought, man, I can relate. But I go home having completed step 6 and 7. And that's it, and we're done. And I can back that up, right? I mean, Bill wrote a lot on the steps. It's 103 pages of actual work on the steps. If you take the 164, remove the family afterwards into the employers and all that stuff, and just the actual working text, 103 pages, plus there's some appendix and some prefaces and some forwards. I mean, you got, I don't know the number of pages. I'm going to guess it's probably about 125, 130 pages of step work and 2 paragraphs on 6 and 7. 1 on 6 and a prayer on 7. I mean, come on. There's nothing to it. And what are you going to talk about for 45 minutes, for God's sakes? I mean, if Bill wanted to say more on 6 and 7, he would have, for crying out loud. I mean, there's some great stuff in the 12 and 12. I get it, but I'm done, and now I'm going to go about writing my inventory. Fast forward about 2 years, and I'm crazy. I mean, I'm working at this job, and it's the best job I've ever had, and I have two thoughts about this job. One is that they're going to fire me at any moment, that they're going to figure out that I'm not really qualified and I'm going to lose this job. And of course, if I lose the job, we know what's going to happen. I'm going to end up broke. I won't be able to pay the mortgage. I won't be able to support my wife and my kid. And she's going to leave, and I'm going to end up broke, homeless, and single one more time because they're going to fire me. And I probably deserve to be fired. And the other thought I have about that job is they don't respect me, nor do they pay me enough. Like, I can have both those thoughts at the same time. And I'm crazy about my job. And I get to work in the morning, and if my boss doesn't greet me and tell me he's glad I'm here, I know I'm going to get fired. If he ever says, hey, can you stop by my office? I'm packing my personal effects before the meeting, right? I mean, I'm just nuts. And my wife, I married a pretty girl, well above my standard. And I know that she's going to wake up one day and she's going to wipe the blur from her eyes, and she's going to say, I married what? And that'll be over. We'll be done. And I know that's the truth. And I also know that she doesn't act right and she behaves badly and she needs to straighten up. I mean, I can have both those thoughts in my mind at the same time. And my AA group, if I have to listen to Mr. Freaking Happy one more time share about how grateful he is to be sober, there's going to be murder at the AA club. I mean, it's going to be headline news. I mean, so I'm crazy about everything, and I go to my sponsor's house because I can't live like this. I don't want to live like this. I mean, I know the problem. I've been around AA a couple of years. I know the problem's me. I know that none of it's real, but I can't escape it. I can't escape this constant barrage of and I go to my sponsor's house and I knock on the door, and he takes one look at me and he says, oh my God, I know that look. That's the Sheldon can't manage his own life look. You better come inside. And I go inside and we sit and we talk, and I tell him I think I'm getting worse. I tell him I think I'm getting sicker. AA is not working for me. Where is this happy, joyous, and free? Where is this relief? Where is this freedom? I haven't had a drink in 2 years, and yeah, I'm paying the rent. I mean, that's nice, right? I'm not spending the rent on crack. That's a bonus, and I'm showing up to work, and so physically my life is better. But I'm a disaster, and I think I'm getting worse. And he kind of smiles and he says, well, I've been watching you for a couple of years, and yeah, you've got a long way to go. There is certainly growth that has to occur. But you're not getting worse. I see how you are in the home group, and I see how your life is, and I see the things that you talk to me about, and I can see that you're definitely showing some improvement. He said, and part of the reason that you feel like you're getting worse might be that improvement. It might be that when you got here, you were so self-involved that you knew everything was everybody else's fault. You were so self-centered that you knew that the world was the problem. And now, as you get some recovery, what's happening is you're starting to see that maybe you're the problem. And that's a beginning of recovery. He said, but I think really, Sheldon, what you have is a step 6 and 7 problem. I said, don't be ridiculous. I've done step 6 and 7. I'm working on 9. I'm doing 12-step work. I'm even occasionally doing 10 and 11, for God's sakes. Step 6 is in the rearview mirror. And like some of you, he laughed when I said that. And he said the funniest thing. He said that the story of his physical sobriety is certainly step 1. That a real grasp on step 1 is what will allow you to not take the first drink. He said, but the story of his serenity, the story of his peace, the story of his of his happiness, of his comfortability, of his ability to enjoy, this gift that God has given us of the adventure of life, is where 6 and 7 is in his daily life. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I really didn't. And we talked about turning our will and our life over to the care of God, and what does that mean? What does it look like for me to turn my will and my life over to the care of God? And some of what I'm going to talk about involves me talking about what I have come to terms with my own spiritual journey. Because when we talk about 6 and 7, and we talk about any of the steps of the Spirit, I'm going to have to talk about my own spiritual journey. And so if anything I say contradicts your spiritual journey, I don't mean it as a contradiction. I mean it as I'm sharing my experience, and your experience could be different, and there is no right or wrong in this area. We're all doing our own spiritual dance. We've all heard the analogy of there are many paths up the mountain to the peak. And my path may look different than your path, and that's okay. And I'm just going to share it with you as an example of my experience. And again, I don't mean to contradict anybody's else's experience. But when I did step 3, and I said that I was willing to turn my will and my life over to the care of God, I think what I thought it meant was, I'm going to pretend that God's in charge so I can get a better job. I'm going to sound like someone that trusts God so I can have a better relationship with the person I sleep next to. I'm going to talk like someone that believes and trusts in God because the payoff will be a bigger, fancier house and a nicer, faster car. I'm going to turn my will and my life over to the care of God for the cash and prizes. My vision and my view of God, and this is funny because I'm not Christian. I'm an atheist or agnostic or confused Jew, however you want to look at it. I was born into a Jewish home. It's not the current way that I practice my religion, but all of my education and training was that of a Jewish kid. But my first thoughts about God were that of Santa Claus. Some kind old man with a beard in the sky that's keeping a list. And if you're nice, you get prizes, hopefully more than once a year, but you get gifts. And if you're naughty, you get a lump of coal, or you get nothing and you get punished. And so the goal is to be nice so you can be on the nice list, and not naughty so you're on the naughty list. But the nice list looks kind of boring, so I want to be nice enough to get the gifts and a little bit naughty but not too naughty so I get the coal. And I'm playing this balancing act of trying to manipulate God, of trying to live my life in a way where, I can stay in his good graces and still have a little fun. But it's certainly transactional. My life with God is certainly transactional. I had a bizarre idea of God. I thought God was going to give me the nice house, the good job, and the pretty girl. Which when, for me now, in my current perspective, if I'm asking God for a nice house, I turned him into a realtor. If I'm asking God for a good job, I just made him an employment agency. And God forbid, if I'm asking him for a partner, I made him a pimp. I'm really living in a bizarre kind of a world when that's when that's the way that I relate to God. But that's what I thought step 3 was. I thought that that's what I was doing, that it was transactional. And that the writing is a little bit, I suppose, transactional. If I keep close to him and perform his work well, that he'll provide what I need. But that's just because it's the beginning, it's the entry point to the commitment that I make with God. What is it that God can really do? How does that really work for me in my life? Well, I don't think God works at all in the physical realm. I don't think he does. For me, he may for you. And again, I feel like I have to apologize for my views, and I'm not apologizing for my views. I'm explaining that it's okay if your views are different. But for me, God doesn't operate in the physical world. God doesn't care where I live. He cares that in my home there is love and compassion and kindness. He doesn't care who I work with or where I work. He cares that I treat my job with integrity, with honesty, with dedication, with fairness, with kindness, and with love. And he doesn't care who I sleep with. He just cares that whoever it is that I share my bed with, I do it with kindness and love and integrity. And that I bring his spirit into that relationship. So how does that work? How do I do that? What's the magic for that? A good friend of mine, Bob Bazance, who some of you may have heard, he's a wonderful communicator. He says that the third step prayer doesn't work like you click your heels 3 times and you end up back in Kansas. In no place like home, there's no place. It doesn't work that way. So how does it work? What is it that has to occur for me to have this connection with God that will set me free? Why didn't I understand 6 and 7 when I did 6 and 7? And I think that what happens is that 6 and 7 is in the place that it is in because we're learning a process by which we're going to live our life. We're learning to do some surrender, some inventory, some sharing of that inventory when necessary, and then turn to God and then make the amends and help others, that it fits in the flow and it belongs where it belongs. But my experience, like I said, was leaving my sponsor's house, saying that I was done with 6 and 7, and then the shock of this uncomfortable life, sitting on his couch, him telling me I needed a 6 and 7 experience, with me having one more time, not from drinking but from living, quicksand stretching out around me in all directions, as Bill talks about on page 8 of his story, that one more time I'm in a place where the world is this dark and angry place, where when I go out into the world I have to protect and defend, and there are problems in front of me greater than any power I can muster inside of me. And so what is that process that I went through for me? And I think a lot of it was driven by step 10 and step 11. That I come out of this process and I start making amends and I start living my life. I love that line in 10 where it says we continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, self-seeking, and fear. That we continue to watch for these things. That as life comes at me, I continue to react in these ways, these knee-jerk defensive reactions that continue to cause me problems and continue to hurt the people around me. And I become the I did it again guy. My inventories become so predictable, right? I'm the I did it again guy. I go to my sponsor after a couple of 3 years of sobriety, and my inventory goes like this. Well, Bob, I was at work today, and my boss said something, and one more time I overreacted. One more time I told him, how can you talk to me that way? One more time I went off in the corner and pouted. In the early sobriety, it was one more time I slammed the door, quit the job, got in my car, now I'm unemployed. I did it again. I'm the I did it again guy. With my wife, she had this unreasonable expectation that the dishes would be done and the socks would not be on the floor. I mean, it really, I know some of the women are like, well, what's wrong with that? But guys, honestly, all the dishes, none of the socks, it was an unreasonable expectation. And then every time she'd say to me, Jesus, are you going to do the dish? I thought she was World War III. What do you mean? I work hard, for God's sakes, blah, 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 right? And then I'm sitting there going, I did it again. I did it again. I'm an overreactor. I take things personally. What's even crazier is I take things personally that aren't personal. Someone could be telling me something about their life that has nothing to do with me, and I'll get irritated. Like, what do they mean by that? Right? I'm in this spot where I always feel attacked. And so I always feel like I need to defend. And I'm the I did it again guy. I did it again. I said it again. It got to a point with my boss, with no exaggeration, that my sponsor had told me that every time I was mean to him, that I should go to. We drank a lot of coffee. We a lot of Starbucks in that office, and that boy, you did it again, Sheldon. Go get him a Starbucks. You know what he likes. Bring him a Starbucks and tell him you're sorry. And then that was the thing. A couple times a week I show up at his office door with a Starbucks in my hand. All right, hey, you got a minute? And he'd just start laughing. Oh, you're late. I expected you 10 minutes ago. One of the times, I blew up at him and I went to him right away to tell him that I was sorry. And I knocked on his door and I come in and I opened the door and he looks at me and he goes, vanilla latte, and then goes back to work, right? Like, cause he knows what's up, right? Why am I living like this? Why am I on the edge? And as time goes by and I grow a little more, and maybe some of you have the same experience I have, where this stuff, I'm being dramatic and we're talking about it like it happens every day, but over time it starts to happen less and less. But I'm still that guy that, given the wrong situation, given the wrong feeling of being attacked, given the situation or the circumstance that brings up the fear, I'm the guy that reacts badly. How do I get beyond that? How do I get freedom from that? And that, I have come to believe, is the gift of 6 and 7. What am I really saying in step 6? In step 4 and 5, I have identified these defects of character. And I'm not a big fan of the lists you can find online of the 274 character defects. I tend to think that all of them can be boiled down to 3 or 4. Every character defect you can find on that list is some derivative of selfishness, self-centeredness, dishonesty, or fear. And for most of us, most of the time, even selfishness, self-centeredness, and dishonesty can really be found under self-centered fear. My fear is what drives me. If resentment is the engine that destroys my life. The book says that resentment destroys more alcoholics than anything else. If it is the engine of my destruction, then the fuel in the engine is my self-centered fear. At the end of the day, I'm afraid. I'm afraid you don't respect me. I'm afraid you don't like me. I'm afraid you're going to get one over on me. I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I think I need. I'm afraid I'm not loved enough. I'm afraid I'm not respected enough. Oh, respect. That is the thing that drives. If I think you don't respect me, that fear of not being respected drives me. But it's fear. It's fear that drives the dishonesty. And where am I dishonest? I have to identify these things. And I'm not dishonest where I'm a thief. I don't steal from people anymore. I mean, I've done my share of stealing, but I haven't stolen in a while. I'm not cash register dishonest. But I am dishonest in the fact that I get 10% of the information and I make up the rest. I think I know things I don't know. The biggest thing that I think I know that I don't know is that I think I know your motivations. I think I know why you did things. I think I know what drives you. I think I know why you're doing the things you're doing that are making me feel attacked, and I'm dishonest. And I'm selfish. I'm a creature of comfort. And I want what I want, and I want it now. And I think I know what's best for me. Which is really weird for a guy who secretly believed for a long time that what was best for him was an 8-ball and a bottle of scotch. That brain thinks he knows what's best for him. And I'm driven. And I learned this in step 5. hopefully I come out of my fifth step with a list that started off in step 4. It started off as a list of all the people that I secretly believe owe me amends. And I go through the transformation where I can see that really the case is at the end of my 4th and 5th step that these are people to whom I owe amends, that I've been driven by these things. And in step 6, it asks me, am I willing to have God remove these defects of character? Am I willing to have him take away the shortcomings? Am I willing to have him take away the wrongs? Am I willing to have God? And this is really the decision in full force that I thought I made in step 3. Because in step 3, I was willing to make a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God because it was transactional and I wanted the cash and prizes. But in step 6, I'm truly making the decision. Am I willing to lay down my defense mechanisms? Am I willing to lay down my desire for power? Am I willing to put aside my arrogance? Am I willing to put aside this absolute certainty that I know what's best? Am I willing to lay down these defects of character, this selfishness, self-centeredness, dishonesty, and fear? Am I willing to give that up to have a better relationship with God, with you, a more comfortable life, a better sobriety? Am I willing to give that away? Am I willing to give up the things I have to give up to have a better relationship with God? It's a decision. And sometimes the answer is no, quite honestly. The longer I'm sober, the more often the answer is yes, please, twice, now. But still, sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes I get power out of feeling superior to you. And so I don't want to give that up. Sometimes my indignance feels good. I get an endorphin or an adrenaline rush out of being superior to you. So sometimes it's no, not this one, not yet, And what do I do if that's the case? Well, if I've really admitted that I'm powerless over alcohol, that my life is unmanageable, and if I really am fully aware that the only thing that I can do is try and find connection to a power greater than myself, and if I've truly made the decision to try to live that way, and think about the step 3 work, right? Yeah, the prayer's pretty, but the work we do is reminding ourselves of selfishness, self-centeredness. It's the root of our problems, right? That if the people step on our toes seemingly without provocation, that we're the actor that runs the whole show, and if only people would behave and do as we wish. I mean, the work on step 3 is not about turning over to God at all. It's about realizing what a putz I've been. And then in step 4, writing the list of when and where and how I've been a putz. In step 4, writing a list of the things that have been blocking me. This is what's been blocking me from the power that was going to give me recovery from the powerless over alcohol life unmanageable. This is the journey I've decided to go on. So hopefully in step 6, I can see the problem, and the problem is me. And I can't do anything about it. You can't fix self with self. How could you? How could more self be the answer? That's why when guys I sponsor say, well, I'm going to try, I'll say, don't try. Please don't try. More self is not the answer to self. Stop it. Stop it immediately. And once we say to ourselves in step 6, and we make that decision that, yes, I see the problem, and the problem is my reaction to life, then we can humbly ask God to remove our reaction to life and let us bring love and kindness and tolerance. Set aside the selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and fear. When I was new, I was made to feel like, and I think it's part of the journey, but I was made to feel like anytime I was upset with anything or angry at anything, it felt like the lecture went something like this: Sheldon, it's not them, it's you. They are perfectly fine. They are wonderful, beautiful people, and you're just an idiot. And if you just won't be an idiot, then you'll be fine. But that's not what the big book says. What the big book says is that the world and its people are often quite wrong. That people make mistakes. The world and its people are often quite wrong. And it never qualifies that, other than to say that if you stay there and you sit in that place, that you will get sicker and you will stay sore. That it will get worse if that's as far as you go. But the world and its people are often quite wrong. What it says, let next, is putting out of our minds the wrongs others have done. That's saying, yes, they're wrong, it's okay, I see that they're wrong. But I'm going to put that out of my mind and I'm going to resolutely look for my own mistakes. What are the mistakes? Where was I selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and afraid? Where did I want a bigger share? Where did I make up stories about how I knew what they were doing? Where was I taking actions that would only benefit me and not them? And what was I afraid of? And then once identifying those, I can humbly go to God and say, Pops, take it from me. I can't do it. So I can be free. And I live my life, 10 is really fall through 9, right? I live my life in this constant cycle of inventorying the upset and the discomfort so I can take it back to 6 and 7. Inventorying so I can take it back to 6 and 7. That the journey of my life becomes a journey through 6 and 7. That my growth and my comfort and my serenity and my freedom and my new character and everything that I'm striving for is a journey through 6 and 7. I live my life flawed, broken. Batteries not included. Lack of power is the dilemma. Right? Addicted, though, to false power. Addicted to the adrenaline rush of thinking I'm right. And then hopefully I learn this lesson in 4 and 5 and in 10 and then in 11 of seeing that my reaction to life is the problem. In the 12 and 12, Bill says that it is a spiritual axiom, meaning it's always true. It's a spiritual axiom that any time I am disturbed, angry, upset, frustrated, over-emotional, afraid, disturbed, anytime that I am emotionally tied up, anytime I'm disturbed, that there is something wrong with me. Not that it's that I'm old, there's something wrong with me. Not that it's entirely my fault, because the world and its people are often quite wrong. But there is something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? I'm being selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and afraid. I'm not trusting God. Am I willing to give that to God? Am I willing to do that? If I am, I can humbly ask Him. If I am, I can humbly ask Him. Humbly ask Him. We pause when agitated, the book says. What do we do in the pause? What's funny is that the 10 steps are interesting because in the book, in 4, it tells us to write those first 3 columns. It says to write who they are, what they did, and how that affected me. In 10, it doesn't tell me to do that again. Sometimes I might have to. But in 10, it doesn't tell me to redo my 4 step. It only says for me to look for that column. Some call it 4, some call it 5, whatever. But that column where it says, was I dishonest, self-seeking, selfish, or afraid? That last column, the one before the last column in the inventory. In the big book, it goes right to there. It just says, continue to watch for selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, afraid. Because I should have learned by now that anytime I'm disturbed, there's something wrong with me, and I take it back in to step 6 and 7. It would be nice, wouldn't it, if I could do 6 and 7 once? Wouldn't it be nice? Or maybe 3 times or 10 times or whatever. But at some point, I would then be cured of my humanity. I am not trying to be cured of my humanness. Some people in AA are, and I feel bad for them. because you can never be, you are human. You are what you're supposed to be. God made us this way. I am not trying to get relief from my humanness. I'm trying to survive my humanness, but I'm not trying to be cured from it. I'm not trying to be on a spiritual hilltop where all of a sudden you'll build a statue to me and place your chips at the foot of the pedestal as you go into detox after I die. I'm not trying to be that guy. I make a lot of mistakes. I do a lot of things wrong, and that's okay. Why would God do that though? Why wouldn't he just make me pure? And I don't know. I mean, anytime you answer questions like that, you're claiming to know the mind of God, for crying out loud. So I don't know, but it's possible that it could be that God allows me to remain flawed because it is my flaws that drive me towards him. It is my brokenness that keeps me close to him. Once you make me perfect, I won't need God anymore. And I don't know about you, but if I don't need him, I ain't praying. Right? I ain't meditating. I ain't trying to seek him once I don't need him anymore. So by allowing me to remain human, trapped somewhere between angel and beast, as the author said, he allows me in the confusion and the chaos to continue to need to seek him. I joked at the beginning, or I talked at the beginning about how there's only 2 paragraphs in the big book, one on 6 and then the prayer. The newcomer may ask, why did Bill only write such a small amount on 6 and 7? And I would challenge you that he didn't only write a small amount on 6 and 7. The entire book is about 6 and 7. There was nothing else to say. It is everything we do here. Step 1, I cannot find a way to live. Step 2, I need to find a 6 and 7 experience. Step 3, I'm going to make a decision to look for a 6 and 7 experience. Step 4, I'm going to write what my life looks like without a 6 and 7 experience. Step 5, I'm going to share that life with my sponsor. So there is some 3 dimension to the mess of my life without a 6 and 7 experience. 8 and 9, I'm going to make amends for everything that I did not living in a 6 and 7 experience. 10 and 11, I'm going to continue to look and strive and try to stay in a 6 and 7 experience. And step 12, I'm going to look for other men or other women, as the case may be, but for me, only men, whose hand I can place on the latch, as the poet says, to the door that only his touch opens. That door is to his 6 and 7 experience. That everything we do in Alcoholics Anonymous is designed for one thing. It's designed so I can understand that without God, I will react to life poorly. Without God, I am likely to focus only on me. I am likely to make up stories and be dishonest about you. I am likely to be afraid of everything. But that if I can find a way to plug into God, and I can find a way to constantly ask him, to be aware of my reactions and ask God to guide those reactions, that maybe, just maybe, I can start to survive and outgrow and recover from this immature alcoholic personality and mind that either I was born with or I created through drug and alcohol abuse. But the hope is, for me, that through a combination of inventory and amends and prayer and meditation and inventory and amends and prayer and meditation, that I can become willing to accept that of myself, I do not have the power to have good reactions to you and to life around me. And that the answer to my problems is that I allow God to relieve me of the bondage of self, selfishness, dishonesty, self-seeking, and fear. And that with His help and with His power, that one day at a time, I'll be able to fit into my own skin. I think I'm a little shy of 45 minutes, but I'm out of juice. So thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you, Sheldon. Thank you for your share. You were heard. Appreciate you and grateful that you're here. Let's take a moment, please. Our Creator, I'm now willing you to have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect, character which stands in the way of my uselessness to you and to my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out here to do your bidding. Amen. I'd like to hand the meeting back to Sheldon to take us out with a prayer or reading of your choice, please, Sheldon.
Well, let's just do this serenity prayer. God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Amen.